Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I wear orange sweatshirts now, everyone. Hi, everyone.
You know why he was doing that, right?
For the WNBA.
Well, because Friday was End Gun Violence Night.
Yes.
So everybody was
all
wearing
the teams
orange.
were doing
Everybody
that.
was wearing orange.
It also worked out for him to wear a WNBA orange sweatshirt.
I know.
To the Mystics and Caitlin Clark.
Mystics and Caitlin.
Yes.
Indiana Fever, I think, is the team she plays for.
Yeah,
right?
if you say so. Because I'm going to go with that game wouldn't have been moved to Cap 1 if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark.
Sure.
So I'll call it the Caitlin Clarks.
I'll agree with you on that.
I'll talk about her in a little bit, how she had a good moment in her rookie season against them. They won, and then everyone's screaming and yelling why she isn't on the Olympic team. So I'm going to do that in a little bit. And I'm going to be contrarian here. I actually don't think the wrong thing happened here, so I'm all right with it.
Okay,
so we'll get to that in a bit. Let's start with the news, though. Dan Hurley says no to the Lakers. Mm-hmm. The reported deal thrown in front of him apparently was 6 years, $70 million, which I don't believe is what UConn could match.
Right.
I don't believe so. Maybe they can, but I don't believe that's the case. So color me surprised by that decision that he said no to LeBron James and to post LeBron James to be the coach of the Lakers and one of the highest paid coaches in the league. I'm surprised.
I'm surprised, and I'm also guessing he kind of knows this is what the Lakers are at this point.
At this point, though, he's the Carberry of this.
Right.
Let's get through the next couple of years. He'll either retire or want to go somewhere else or whatever it is, and then you'll be on the other side of it, which he apparently doesn't want to be on the other side of that.
Well, not only that, I cannot think of a worse fan base that you need to tell them to be patient about the other side.
They're the Lakers, though.
I know. In all of North American sports, though. I'm talking
they have
all major
rarely name a period of time where they didn't have a superstar on their team.
Sure. No, I'm agreeing. And I'm saying I just think this fan base, they are the actual most fickle fan base in America. And to even hint at we have this coach for the long haul without somebody already ready to go or draft picks even that could possibly get you that superstar.
Yeah.
I think he's going, nah, I've seen this movie too many times. And what if LeBron hates me in the first 6 months? You're going to fire me anyway. You know,
That's right.
I just think he's going with the safe route here. And I think that's perfectly okay.
It is the safe route.
Sure.
They're never getting rid of him.
Right. Correct. Exactly. He's there for life. I mean.
Yeah, if he wants to be.
Yeah.
I have always felt like, though, he could always go back to college the next day, whatever happens in the NBA.
But he can't go back there. That's the problem.
Probably not. No, it would depend on what's going on there, but probably not. Mm-hmm. And then, but, Rick Pitino went to the NBA. It didn't go particularly well. It wasn't as bad as people remember it, but it didn't go particularly well. Right. And then he went back to Louisville.
Yeah.
John Calipari went to the NBA. He went back and he's been was a long-term coach at Kentucky, won a national. So this guy could do that. That's not that I don't think that's a risk at all.
Yeah.
So this is a little Ben Johnson to me a little bit. They're telling you you're ready. You didn't text them on the way to the interview to say you didn't want to be there.
Sure.
But I'm a little surprised that he turned this down. I mean, you knew that they were going to overwhelm him with money. So that part was, don't worry about that part. It's all about, do you want to do this? And I am a little surprised that he didn't want to do this.
I think
it's LeBron James.
I think it's LeBron. I think you're saying it's LeBron James. And I'm going, it's LeBron James.
I mean,
I think
Coach K turned down Kobe in his prime.
Right.
He
Correct.
did this.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So maybe Hurley's looking at UConn going, if I stay here for however long I stay here, I could break records? Is that how he's thinking about it?
He's also figured it out in the NIL age.
He has.
No other coach has, really. Yeah,
he has.
So,
he's been able to do a turnstile, and whatever his coaching style is clearly works because not only do they win big.
Yes, right.
They blew people
dominant.
out.
Yeah, dominant.
Dominant. They were dominant in both of these postseason runs where the games aren't close. Mm-hmm. They just blow people out. So, that's not going to continue in perpetuity, but clearly he's way ahead of the curve. He's obviously very comfortable there. He likes it there. Yep. They don't want him going anywhere, obviously. He's been able to deal with NIL. I think the rules will change over the next 5 years. I think they're going to figure out a way to streamline it so everybody's playing within the same kind of set of rules, which is going to be the schools are paying the players. Like that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's going to happen. He doesn't have to worry about the football money part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's in the right conference. That conference is happy to be basically a basketball conference. They're not worried about the schools jumping anymore because none of them have the programs that do jump anymore. So he's in a good spot again, and he feels safe.
Right.
He wins a lot. They pay him well. He's happy where they are. He's a god there. They love him.
Yes.
Why would he go anywhere else? But turning down LeBron, it's one thing if it's the Lakers post LeBron and it's Bronny and and Rui. Like that's the stars.
Sure.
And I'd go, you know what? Like he'll be smart enough to know that he can't win. It doesn't matter how much they pay him.
Right.
In the NBA, you can't win without players. But to turn down the last couple of years of LeBron's career, that's an interesting decision that maybe he'll regret one day. I don't know. Because he gets an opportunity to coach one of the 5 best players of all time. He could do that. He's choosing not to do it.
I joked about this on my show, though. If LeBron hates him and he wants him out after a year, and that's very possible with LeBron.
That is possible, but I do think in this case, this was a gambit to me to the Lakers, where they go, okay, who's in charge here? We've been asking this for a couple of years.
Yes.
Who's in charge here?
Correct.
LeBron is.
Yes.
We now know this, and he's a bad GM.
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
a really bad GM.
Late
and he runs.
GM.
Yeah, and he runs coaches out. Okay,
Yes.
all right. And he runs anybody out. He runs anybody out that he blames, and when he blames them, they get run over like by a bus.
Yes.
Like Russ got run over by a bus out there, and now Darvin Ham got run over by a bus. They just don't like what's going on there. Fine. I mean, it's his prerogative to do that. But this gambit was a little different because they gave him so many years and so much money that it definitely gets through the LeBron era. The question is, if they don't win, does he besmirch the guy's character on the way out? Which I don't think he would, but he would maybe insinuate he ain't all that as a coach,
Right.
which is equally as like destructive.
We'd get the month-long post-game press conferences of this needs to change or this style isn't working. This is what happens in the NBA. It's always a build-up for the last month before someone gets canned, especially there, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's always pot shots, and then all of a sudden...
Well, he's looking for a scapegoat.
Right.
He's always looking for a scapegoat, and he found one in Darvin Ham this time because there was nobody on the team that he could point to this time.
Rui.
Yeah, before it was Russ.
Yeah.
Like, he's the guy I'm going to blame, even though he's the one that went out of his way to try to acquire him. Like, he's the one that made that happen. It's been him all along, but he'll never take the responsibility for it. So when he is part owner GM of the Las Vegas team, they're going to suck. They are.
Right. Yeah.
He's going to full Jordan at 45, come back and play.
Right.
For a year. You tell us scratch the itch. He's going to do the same thing Jordan did. He's going to realize he's going to pick Kwame Brown. Team's not going to be very good. He's going to have to play for them.
Vegas.
LeBron Vegas. Yeah. La Vegas.
Viva LeBron Vegas.
Yes. La Vegas. La Vegas.
La Vegas.
La Vegas. So, all right. Well, good for you, Dan Hurley, for making a choice. He went full Ben Johnson here and said, my family likes it here. I like it here. We're winning here. It's the Bahamas here. I like it. We like the sunshine. We're getting the sunshine. I'm just going to keep going here. And it's hard to argue with it because the success is so high. But I just, to me, it's like aspirationally, if one of the biggest brands in sports, and certainly the biggest brand in that sport in the world, comes to you and overwhelms you with an offer and says, oh, by the way, you get to coach LeBron James for at least 1 year, maybe a couple, and we're securing you that no matter what he does, whether he wants to retire, play, or move on, you're going to be here. To turn that down, that's an interesting choice.
Right. No, I 100% agree. I also think there's a factor here, too, that did LeBron want Hurley? And if he didn't, did Hurley want to
tell Hurley's people that? Like, I don't know.
Well, or maybe Hurley asked the Lakers of, can you get an assurance that LeBron actually wants me? Because we all know how this ends if he doesn't.
Right.
And that could be a factor there as well.
Could be.
Or could have been another layer here. I haven't seen anyone really talk about this or hear about it. Did Hurley go, if he doesn't like me, is he going to resign with you? Because that's another layer here that I know no one's really talked about.
Yeah.
And everyone assumes he's coming back, but he's got the option to go anywhere he wants.
He does.
And so that's the other
Maybe
factor
the
there.
Lakers are okay with that.
Maybe. If that was the case.
I've been at the point with him where if I'm the Lakers, at some point you need to stand up and go, we're the Lakers. We're not LeBron.
Correct.
The
Exactly.
Fever are Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
The Lakers are not LeBron.
Right.
They really aren't. And right now, the returns are they kind of can't win with how they're constituted. They don't really have a lot of flexibility to do whatever they need to do to make the team that much better than what it already is. It clearly isn't good enough. So their choice was, okay, let's go take a swing at a coach.
Yeah.
So they do. Does he like this coach or not?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But in the end, if I'm the Lakers and I go, he does it, but he wants to go, is that the worst thing that ever happened to us? Because we did win with him. It hasn't gone well the last couple of years. He's at the end of his career anyway. He's, holding the gun to everybody's head saying, you got to pick my son. Like there's a lot here where if I'm the Lakers, I go, we're the Lakers. Let's be the Lakers again. We'll be fine post LeBron.
Yep.
This isn't the magic with Shaq. When you lose somebody like that and you go, we're never replacing this dude. That's not the Lakers. Like when there's a big giant hole for a superstar, there's a lot of hands that get raised that want to go play for them. So they don't ever have a problem recruiting anybody to play for that team. So for Hurley, I think the risk was minimal, honestly, but he didn't want to do it.
Well, I think people are willing to go play there without LeBron. I think there's more of a factor to get people to go there without him.
Yeah.
Than
there's another question too of is the coaching so different in the NBA from the NCAA? And I believe that it is.
Yeah.
That maybe he's going, I can't do me here.
That's true.
Because they're not going to listen to me or they're not going to buy into this. Or the style that we play actually doesn't work in the NBA. So I'd have to change what I do. He seems like he's a pretty hardcore coach. If you watch the way UConn plays, you can tell. Yeah. And that's a good thing if you can get everybody on the same page. But the NBA players are a different breed. Like, they control.
Yes.
They control everything.
Right.
The good coaches work with them to put something together that works for everybody. And maybe Hurley's self-aware enough to go, if I, hit the throttle on these guys and then they revolt, well, that's not going to go well either.
Right.
And they're like, well, we don't like your game plans. And we've seen this a million times. LeBron draws up plays.
Yes, exactly.
In the huddle.
Yeah.
He's the one telling people what to do. So, this isn't a hate LeBron segment. I mean, like, he's earned everything that he's gotten to. I think he's gone a step too far, and he doesn't seem very coachable to me anymore, which maybe he feels like, who's going to coach me? I know more than they do. And he may be right in feeling that way. But I do think there's a delineation of power that needs to exist on teams. Even if the player is the most powerful player, they still need to defer to the coach and let the coach run the team. And I don't get the sense that that's what happens with him. And therefore, I think the problems that they have.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's late age LeBron is a problem. He's earned it to be that problem.
He has earned it.
It's absolutely just a thorn in the side of the Lakers and the players that he plays with and now the coaches. So I don't know. He's nuclear. You can't touch him, really.
He's not a player that's going to be expected to play 40-plus minutes a night
That's
anymore.
Right. No, it actually
I
that.
appreciate the fact that he doesn't do the load management stuff. Like, he's one of, I will credit him for this. Everyone else does this. He doesn't do that.
Yeah.
He plays. He shows up. But he's playing less minutes than he used to. If you watched you watch it during the season sometimes, there are tons of possessions the ball doesn't go through him. I think they're trying to save him, which I get it. He's got so much mileage on him that I totally get it. So there's a little of Ovechkin going on here. Like, go watch Ovechkin now. Go watch film of Ovechkin 5 years ago. Go watch him now. It's not the same player anymore. There's just so much mileage on him, but he's a massive star, and you're going to let him do his thing. And that's the same thing here. The problem is, it sounds like in hockey, if you're not coordinated, you have no chance of winning, and therefore the coach needs to be listened to on some level. In basketball, the players can totally ignore the coach. Just go do this. We're going to go do this.
Right.
We think we're better this way. And then we'll see how it works out. So, all right, UConn's sigh of relief.
Yeah. No,
they're not replacing him.
Pumped. He probably did get a new deal and all of that.
Oh yeah, $70 million. I have a hard time buying.
No, of course.
But you're our coach for life.
Right.
You want to be Boeheim here because you want to be Calhoun here. We'll let you be Calhoun here.
He gets to go. I turned down the Lakers and LeBron for you.
That's right. Yeah, Coach K did it.
Right.
20 years ago, he did it. He turned down Kobe and Shaq. that's an interesting choice.
Right.
But he's also the winningest coach in collegiate basketball history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's like, why put, maybe on some level, he's like, why put my reputation on the line? Why would I do that?
Well, and at that point, too, like, college basketball was a machine. He was Duke.
Yes.
Like, you can keep reloading every single year.
That's right.
He only had to
and you can keep players for 3 years.
Right. He only had to modify it when the one and done started. And then guess what? He started getting the one and dones, too. Like
he reluctantly went in that direction because he saw what was happening and he realized, well, the game's changed.
Yes.
Now, I think he's amid a lot of coaches that went, this Wild West stuff isn't for me.
Yeah, I'm good.
And it was time for him to retire anyways. He was older, but like Jay Wright is the prime example of this. Jay Wright was winning championships and going to the Final Four at Villanova and all of a sudden just put his hands up and said, no, thank you.
Yep, exactly.
I'm not going to deal with this
Before
anymore.
even this really
He got in front of it.
Yeah.
And he's not old enough to go, what are you retiring
That's right.
for? Like, you've probably got 10, 20 years left in you. And he's like, no, I don't.
He's like, I'm
not
good.
in this.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll take that Lakers job. And he's just like, you guys want to give me $70 million? I'll go do that. I don't need to sit here with Seth Davis every week. I can go out there and do that. All right, so there's that. Game 2 NBA Finals. No surprise. The Celtics won. No surprise it was closer. No surprise Luka was great.
Right, exactly.
But they're not good enough to win this series, period. That's where we are. So it's all a question of, does it end in Dallas or end in Game 6? That's where I'm at now. Can Dallas actually win 2 games?
Right.
I think they'll win 1.
I think they'll win 1. I don't think they're winning 2.
I don't think so either. And it was the second night in a row that Kyrie's shooting percentage was bad.
Yep.
So the whole series to me was, if Drew Holiday can limit him, they've got no shot.
Yep.
And they couldn't get to 100 points last night.
Not only
so,
that.
like, they can't, it doesn't matter what Luka does. Like, this is the whole, he can do whatever he wants.
Yep.
If everyone else is limited, they can't win.
Correct.
We're too deep, and we can score at a clip. And they didn't even shoot particularly well last night and won again.
No, I think I said this to you Friday. One of them is going to go off. Not both of them, though. The team is too good for letting both of them, and it happened to be, all right, Luka, we'll let you go. I was watching the game. You and I were at Gary Clark Jr. last night. I was watching the game, though, before he went on. Luka had 20 in the first quarter and a half.
Yeah.
And all I could think of was, he's got that many points, and I think the Celtics were up by a point or down by a point in the whole entire stretch. I was like, he's having a game, and it's not even the difference maker. I knew then that they were going to pull away and end up winning that game. And by the way, Vegas on it, 7-point spread, and they won by 7. So Vegas was on it again with them.
I assumed the game would be closer than the first one, just because I think the first one, there's going to be an adjustment, but it's not happening. And I mean, here's even worse. Like Tatum again, 6 of 22, 1 of 7 from 3. Mm-hmm. They went 10 of 39 from 3, 25%. And never were really totally threatened.
Right, exactly.
Like, they don't even have to play great. They played great for that stretch of time in first quarter into the second quarter against Dallas and got a huge lead on them. When they do that, it gets ugly. Mm-hmm. When they don't even play particularly well or don't even shoot particularly well, they win anyway.
Yep, exactly.
Jaylen Brown had a good night, 8 of 15. Drew Holiday was, I mean, if he's going to give them 26 points, again, you're done. If Porzingis, like he did in the first game, did what he did, you're done.
Yep.
Like, they don't need their quote-unquote stars to be really good to win in this series. Jason Tatum is shooting like 30-something% from the field, and they're up 2 games to none, and they don't look like they're being threatened.
Right.
I'll go back to, I think I saw over the weekend that Jason Kidd said out loud, Jaylen Brown's the best player on the team.
Yeah.
I found nothing controversial about that.
Sure.
And I don't know why people make such a big deal. Everybody wants to put this wedge between Tatum and Brown. I have felt for 3 years running he's the best player on their team. He may not be the bulk scorer. Mm-hmm. He may not take as many shots, which he normally doesn't. But from just the clutch moments through the last few years in the playoff runs, it's been him over Tatum.
Yep.
In the moments where they need kind of an electric play, it's him. He's the one that can kind of create his own shot a little differently than Tatum. It's him. Like, I don't even know what was controversial about that. I think he is the best player on their team. And the weirdest part about it is they paid him like he is last year. It's not like they're not treating him that way. This isn't a Wall Beal thing where it's like 1-1A. No, it's 1-1. They've got 2 1s.
Yep.
Brown is the best player on the team. What's controversial about saying that?
I think it was more, at least, like, I saw the Twitter reaction to it, is everyone was kind of like, don't fall for it, guys. As in, like, that was Kidd trying to toss a wedge in between them, like, on purpose to, like, maybe I can mess with the locker room a little bit. And that's what I kind of thought it was. I agree with you.
Everybody's been trying to do this to them this whole postseason run, and it hasn't bothered them yet.
Exactly. Like they're still blowing people out.
They're still blowing people out.
Fine.
They're still paid, and now that they're winning, all of this is bluster. Like it's just it's noise. It's all like this is all anybody's got on them.
Well, yeah, of course.
It's just noise now. It's like you can't actually. They've lost 2 games in the playoffs. There's nothing to say about them on the court that really is worth criticizing. So what do you go for?
That's what the NBA media
They're
does.
reaching.
Yeah.
They're reaching for something to try to like find something wrong with them, and there just kind of isn't this year. It's their year, obviously. They've been this matchup again, they got the 5 seed. No one's had an easier run. So like and I think both things can be true. They're really good, and they're the best team, and they happen to have had the easiest possible path to a championship that I can remember. Like, they're not playing the best team in the West.
That's right.
They're not.
Exactly.
That team was 5th for a reason this year. They didn't play the best team in the East once during the entire they were, but like the next best team, they never played them. They never played Philadelphia. They never played Milwaukee. And the 3 teams they did play had humongous injuries that marginalized them.
That's right. Yep.
They're lucky. They're very fortunate that they've had the road that they've had. And at the same time, they have not struggled.
That's right. Exactly.
So both things are true.
They've been sitting at home for a week after every series.
They're dominant, right? They're dominant. And the road got easy for them. And that's why they're going to have an all-time postseason where they're going to lose 2, maybe 3 games throughout an entire run and win a championship, which in this day and age with how the talent is spread out is nearly impossible.
That's right. Well, and also, like, it's funny. Like, you have to give them credit because that's what great teams do.
Yes.
They blow out the teams and take care of them early when, you don't expect them to.
Yes.
So,
All right. So good for them. Next game is not till Wednesday, so we have a couple more nights with
Correct.
that. The MVP odds shift. Last week I said it. I go, Jaylen Brown's 7-1. I'm like, if it's not Tatum, it's going to be him.
Yeah.
And now it's 13-12.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's
and you know what? I think I don't think the media is just going to give it to Tatum as a lifetime achievement award. If he keeps shooting 6 of 22 and stuff like that, you have to give it to the better player.
That's right.
And he is the better player right now.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
he's probably going to get it, like as it stands right now.
Right.
We'll see when it goes to Dallas, but I don't expect them to win more than 1 game now. So I have a feeling this is going to end in 5. And if it does somehow get to 6, I don't believe it'll get to 7. The disparity between the 2 teams is so blatantly obvious that I just don't see it.
I said Celtics in 5, so I just had
I think I
myself
said
on the back.
6 initially, but I'm like, Kyrie's going to have to be way better in games 3 and 4 to stretch it that long, for sure.
Celtics in 5, and I also have Tim Murray's bet in of Celtics 1.5 on the series.
Well, you're looking good on that one.
Feeling
All right,
good.
we'll be right back. Bram, watch the show. ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Did you see Jason Worth over the weekend? Was the part owner of the winner of the Belmont Stakes. My guys at America's Best Racing were embedded with him because they had done a video with him during the Derby Trail when he had door knock at, I can't remember where, Bluegrass Stakes or Arkansas Derby or one of the major stakes races. And he ended up like 3rd or 4th in it. And so they kind of showed the ups and downs of being in the ownership. And they pointed it out to me at the time because they're like, look how into it he is. And he's way, way, way into it. And then his horse ended up winning. They were embedded with him. He's just going nuts
That was
up
a
in
scene.
the stands.
That was a scene is what happened.
It was weird, too. It was at Saratoga this year because they're remodeling Belmont. So it was kind of a different race. But good for him. Congratulations. Welcome to the highs and lows of
there it is.
of horse racing. And now because that horse won that race, if he is virile, that horse is worth a lot of money.
Right.
You only know until you know.
That's right.
They're going to have to find out.
Yep, right.
But he's in very good shape. So his early foray into horse racing turned out to be a jackpot hit. He's lucky.
He also, I don't remember the last year he played, but doesn't look like he's aged. I think it's the hair and the beard.
It's the hair.
Just covers everything up, which,
He looks like he's straight out of like a Southern rock band. If he popped up on stage and was playing bass for ZZ Top, it wouldn't surprise me.
I settled into Saturday night that he looks like a Quentin Tarantino character.
Yeah.
Like pick your movie, you could find
He could be a
spot
good guy
for
or
him.
a bad guy,
Yes.
too, with that
no,
look.
totally.
In a Quentin Tarantino
Could be the
movie.
anti-hero as well.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of good, a lot of bad that happens
Yeah.
with that guy. But I'm staring at him going, you belong as a movie character somewhere.
So I was happy for my friends. Dan Torgman comes on here to preview a lot of the races, and he sent me this clip. He's like, get this out there, because they were embedded with him, and he's just going berserk after they got like the inside clip with him.
That's
so
awesome.
It was very cool. All right, then over the weekend, Team Ted was getting ready for a big night at Cap One because the Caitlin Clark was in town. Second night in a row that they had two Premier Mystics games with the Sky and Angel Reese, and then Caitlin Clark on Friday. I'll get to her in a moment. But he did a pregame interview, and he did it with Alex Bloom of DC News Now.
Yep.
And this was quite a soundbite because Alex, to his credit, didn't just ask about, the WNBA.
Yep.
He asked about where they stood with the Nationals,
Yep.
and Ted was happy to talk about it. And this is what he said about it.
Been so much growth with Monumental Sports. There's been talks and mentions of a possible, you looking into buying the Nationals. Is there anything you can tell us, any updates in that category, anything you'd like to say about it?
No updates. I'm just trying to remind people that, we think we know how to build and operate and manage a great operation, but that scale really matters. The Nationals are in a rebuild. Our Wizards are in a rebuild. The Mystics are in a rebuild. And what you need is the commitment and the investment and the ability to channel your revenues into every part of the organization. And when you're in a big market like DC, you're going to be compared to and you're going to compete with Los Angeles and New York. And I just think many hands would make light work. And I love the game. And so I'm hoping that at some point we can make a offer that the Lerner family says, yes, let's go do this together. And so I'm unabashed. I'm not shy to say I think it's the right thing for the team, the franchise, the players, and let's do it.
Okay. Not unabashed is an easy way of saying, you guys should get out of this business and let me do this because I'm actually more ready and apt and able to do what needs to be done in modern sports, which was, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a shot across the bow.
Now, because the learners don't speak, I don't know how they feel about that.
Yes,
and I clearly don't want to speak for them. But there's a part of me that goes, Mark Lerner probably heard that and was like, excuse me?
The Lerner,
We won a World Series here.
Learners are Emperor Palpatine in the chair.
Yeah.
No one gets to them except for
Right.
Mike Rizzo. Mike
Right.
Rizzo's Vader. He's the only one that talks to him.
That's it.
No one gets in that room.
Nobody speaks to
You
them.
do get choked by Mike Rizzo.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
Right.
yeah. So, Ted to go that, I don't want to call that scorched earth, but that's very much like a...
It was as close to, it was
Bleeper-
very presumptuous.
Bleeper get off the pot is pretty much what he was saying. Like,
And also, you guys are going to be stuck being middling or worse unless you let someone like me take over the team and I can help you.
if I'm
I was like, really? Okay.
If I'm the Nats, I'm throwing the ring on the table going, I'm sorry, did we not win the
Yeah.
championship 5 years ago? Let's calm down on that.
You own 3 teams. You have 1 ring.
Right.
We own 1. We have 1. What's your what's your deal? What's your deal? What's your deal? What's your deal?
Well, now, great. I sold the Mystics short there too, so Mystics have their
Mystics,
title.
yeah, 2.
They
They have
have
2.
a title.
That's right,
So,
2.
but
Yes.
at the same time, they're going. You have a generational goal scorer. You've only got 1, and you're playing this record out. You've got the basketball team where you've had 2.5 franchise players in the entirety. Arenas, Wall, Beal.
Wall, Beal. Yes.
And I count them as 1.5. You can at me who you think the 1
Yeah.
is and the half is, or if you think they're 0.75. Fine.
Yeah.
They're going, I don't know. We've had this guy Zim. We had him his entire career here. We had this guy Bryce Harper. We had Strasburg. Granted, they sucked to get those number 1 overall picks. Then they signed Max Scherzer. Like, they've done a nice job of doing it every which way to build that roster up. And I know baseball is different than the other two, but the argument there is you're not so much above them that you're almost telling them that you don't know what they're doing.
The Nationals are struggling. They're rebuilding by choice.
Right.
They traded away their best players.
Right, and they went for it went for the rebuild, right?
Yeah.
That's always been my thing about the Wizards is you can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the rebuild.
The Wizards have been doing this for what feels like eons.
Yes, right.
I don't know. It felt like when he says scale really matters, I know what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's looking at this network And he thinks that that's the answer that they need to scale up what they're doing, because the partnership, which is a lack thereof because of the relationship that was negotiated in the first place, which was a mistake by Major League Baseball and Masson, is a mistake. But when the Masson thing ends, because it sounds like the Orioles are at least open to let's get this right for everybody.
Yes.
Then what do the Nationals do? And it seems like Ted is saying to them, I'm ready to help you go to the next level. You should just come to me now. But that shouldn't stop them from thinking, why can't we have our own media arm?
That's right. No, absolutely.
Like what?
For sure.
But they'd have to be ready and prepared to do it. And Ted, in his defense, is already doing it and prepared to do it and can seamlessly move them into that.
Right.
So they'd have to build it from scratch. And I don't know what it would look like if they did Nats TV.
Right.
So I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
Could they get, partnerships with certainly linear over the air? Yeah.
Of course.
Like there's a lot of teams that are doing this now, linear over the air and streaming at the same time.
Yep.
So they could do that. There'd be a line out the door of the local stations here that, of course, that would want to do that and be the home of the Nationals.
Of course.
Feel like I'd be going back to my childhood when I used to watch the Orioles on WDCA Channel 20. But they could, or they could go, you know what, Ted, you're right. You have the network. We don't. And I think that's what he meant by when he said, let's do this together.
Yeah, right.
I think that's what he meant by
that's
that.
That's what I thought too, yes.
But isn't he saying buy the team?
Right. So that's what I was kind of.
How would they be doing it together with him other than just selling him the team and going off into the sunset?
Yeah, because I was kind of side-eyeing that of, if you get the team, you get the team. The learners are out. I mean, maybe they could remain as minority partners. That happens all the time in all of sports, right? Where, previous ownership stays on for a small stake in the team, but there's no co-owners in this. So I don't know what he was really getting at with that part of things.
Also don't understand what that means exactly. But Ted has gotten bold. Oh, he is just willing to just say some things that you're surprised. It's almost too honest at times. Like he did it throughout the Virginia process. He came around to, he finally was like, yeah, I like to be liked.
Yeah, right, which I was like,
and then he just said something like, clearly the Nationals can't get where they need to without me, which is basically what he just said.
A little ridiculous, but...
There are, no offense, there are other people that could buy the team.
Yes, correct. Exactly.
It's not like that's impossible.
Right. Did you find it interesting, just to rewind what he said like halfway through that clip, that he actually used the word rebuild for the Wizards and the Mystics? Like that's...
Well, they are. That is what they're
doing. But they've been... Remember, that's a bad word. You don't use that.
Bad word. Yeah.
Retool or refocus or whatever you want to say. He actually said the word rebuild when it came to the Mystics and the Wizards.
Yes. I did see this too from the Baltimore Banner. They interviewed Janet Marie Smith, who returned to the organization, who she was part of the construction of Oriole Park.
Yes, right.
And she came back to the team, I guess, not too long ago, and essentially has said, and is putting out this kind of, she described Camden Yards as elastic, and that ballparks are elastic, and that times change, and that every stadium needs to kind of stay up with the times and be what their city is about.
Yep.
Every time I go to Camden Yards, I'm like, this is either the best or one of the top 5 ballparks in the sport.
Yep.
And I never feel like they have to do things, but they do, which I guess is great.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what she means by this, but she was insinuating that there's whatever is representative of Baltimore isn't quite there right now, and we're going to change that. And I am not sure what she means by that.
So there have been a couple renderings that got released to fans. Like they've asked the fans what you'd prefer to see at Camden Yards.
Yes.
And a couple of the options,
Crab Shack.
Yeah, that's the corner. I think it's in the corner of the third base line.
Yeah. They're talking about a Crab Shack.
They want it to be like a crab party area where you knock out.
Don't throw the claws.
Well, yeah, but you knock out that top part of the area. Because I will say there's one flaw with Camden Yards, and I think you can agree or disagree with me on it. The fact you can't see the game from the concourse isn't very modern.
Yeah.
And that would alleviate that in that one corner. They would kind of knock the walls out, and it'd be this open space back there. So you could hang out drink at tables or bars or whatever and still look at the game. Because I hear what she's saying there. Baseball games are a hangout now. They were always a hangout, but it's become more about where can we kind of stand for a little bit before we go to our seats. And I think that's what she's getting at. How do you make some of these areas a little bit better accessibly?
She was asked, the central focus when making Camden Yards more than 30 years ago was to reflect Baltimore. How can those concepts keep the city in focus? Mm-hmm. And she said, I think the question is really what reflects Baltimore today. In the years since Camden Yards opened, there's a lot of fantastic companies here, and there's some more innovative tech companies, creative companies, companies associated with our strong medical institutions. So how do you weave that into the ballpark? The kind of food and beverage experience that draws that crowd versus a community that might have a more financial corporate base, that's worth looking at. So she wants to reach out to the new companies that are here to make it attractive for their employees and to have corporate partnerships. What does that look like? I don't know exactly what that means. And she said, there's no doubt the idea of the nest was born from something the Rockies did years ago as a very creative solution to an outfield upper deck section at Coors Field, which was to transform a traditional seating bowl into a series of roof decks and bars. And I suspect that's the model that would make a lot of sense in Baltimore.
Yep. See, that's what they want. They want a couple of those. Specifically, too, up on that left field upper level where they don't even sell the tickets most of the time.
Right.
Now, granted, they sell out a couple times a year. Like I already saw the Orioles tweeted this weekend. Saturday and Sunday already sold out this weekend. So they're getting good enough that those are being sold again. But I'd say 80% of the time, 70% of the time, those tickets aren't even put up for sale because the attendance doesn't stretch up there. And I think that's what they're pretty much talking about.
I guess they did what they asked the fans, what do you want?
Yep, exactly.
And and she even admitted, she said, when you do that, they typically point to other places that have certain things, and we have to decide whether that works for us.
Yeah.
Listen, I that stadium's amazing. It can only really get better.
Correct. Yeah.
It's hard to ruin it.
Agree.
You know, like
right. People hated the outfield
architecturally,
wall.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
The infrastructure's beautiful. Every time I go up there, it looks brand new.
Yes, correct.
It really is in incredible shape. So we'll have to see.
The outfield wall got moved in. Everyone hated it. Everyone's used to it now. You can make modifications to the park, and people all get used to it.
Yes.
I think it's about the hang, though. Like, you and I talk about Nats Park quite a bit, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Nats Park is fine. It's the definition of fine.
It's fine.
It's
in a fun neighborhood.
Yep.
I like where it is.
Correct.
I like going to their games. I've said this a million times. I'm not shy saying it. I'm unabashed in telling you it's an average stadium experience.
But guess
is
what?
what it is.
Location, 10 out of 10.
Yes.
And that's really what matters in a lot of this. But the other part of that is, you know what Nats Park kind of built that park on? Was socializing.
Yes.
That red porch is always packed with people hanging out. The counters all across the upper and lower levels where you can hang out and not actually have to go to your seat. That's the modern makeup. Camden Yards isn't really built for that. That's fine, but I think they need to find an in-between, and I think that's what they're getting at, essentially.
I think that's what they're talking
Because I think when the Nats added all those counters, that was a game changer. I've gone to, I bet you 15% of Nats games I've gone to in my life, I've not gone to my seat. I think 15% is probably a healthy addition there.
Yeah.
Because I'll go, I'm standing here at the counter, we're having a good time. No reason to go to the seats today.
Yeah. The stadium is average.
Right. But
it is.
But you have
Camden
that
Yards
option.
is an experience.
But you have that option of being social and not having to even go to your seat if you're having a good enough time. So.
Yeah. All right, let me take a quick break. We'll do Caitlin Clark's visit next. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. So we had our local Caitlin Clark professional experience. We've had it twice this year because she played at Maryland, and that got overrun with her, fans that showed up. There was a line out the door to get into that game when they played the Terps before the NCAA tournament towards the end of the Big Ten season. Now she showed up here, scored 30 against the Mystics, so she had one of her best games as a pro.
I was watching the end of it because I was out somewhere. Of course, it was on, actually, which was like just as much of a shock. But her handles are insane. She was juking Mystics out of their shoes left and right. So she's the real deal.
She is 14th in the league in scoring to this point, having played in 12 games, and that's more than just about anybody else. So they've had a pretty heavy early season schedule.
Yep.
Like the Aces have only played 9. A couple others have played 10. So she's played more games than most. She's shooting 37% from the field, and her 3-point percentage is lower, 32%. So there's the surprise for her at this point, and probably the learning curve part of it, because that's going to be the big part of her game, is that she's supposed to become Steph Curry.
Exactly.
And we'll see if she does or she doesn't. But that's where it is at this point, because the players who are ahead of her in the scoring column in general that shoot threes, and some of them don't shoot a ton or at bulk like she does, because she's averaging almost 9 a game. So of people who are shooting that much, she's actually kind of a little below the mean of what that is, but most of the players don't shoot that many threes.
Right.
So she's not, it's seemingly, if you just go off of statistics, she's not that far away from probably turning a corner.
Mm-hmm.
She hits 1 to 2 more of those threes a game and gets her shooting percentage from 3 closer to 40%. And less closer to 30, where it is right now, or even gets it up to like 38%, which would be a decent number from 3, she will be averaging 20 points a game, which would then put her in the top 5. So it seems that she's not far away potentially from that happening. So I'd say, all in all, the start of her career is not bad.
Right.
You know, like I know that a lot of the attention has gone to all the things that have happened in and around her, but that's where it is. All right. The other thing that came out after the weekend was she was not chosen, at least for the initial roster, for the United States women's basketball team for the Olympics next month. And I'm not trying to be a contrarian here. I agree with that. For all of the people who immediately wrote, I'm not interested in watching them unless she's on it. So you're not watching our Olympic team play? And don't you trust that at this juncture, they'll put what they believe is the best roster of 13 to 15 players on the team? And haven't you figured out by now, by watching the WNBA, because you're watching like me for the first time, that she might not be one of the best players in the league right now?
Right.
But in 4 years, that might be very different, or hopefully is very different. Like, this is the one where I'm like, you don't gift her things like this. It's not necessary to do it. And it would be a slap to somebody in this league that probably deserves to be there right now over her. Right now.
I'm mixed on this because not everyone's going to play. Like, you and I have watched the men's side where somebody rides the bench pretty much the whole time and doesn't actually play.
Like, I mean, a great player rides the bench.
Right, exactly. And so to me, it's almost like you could have just had her sit on the bench and more people would have watched as well.
Yeah,
but
and you know, like the men's team, they're going to boat race some countries.
Exactly. And
so she could play late, I suppose.
Right, and she's going to get open looks because it's going to be, you know, whoever they're blowing
when they beat Ghana 102 to 38.
Right, yes, exactly.
Right.
She's going to get wide open looks. I'm torn, though, for the reason you said, though, is because how do you pull someone off the roster for her? I'm not sure. I'm still conflicted on this. I don't really know how to feel. I think if there's an injury, maybe she's probably the first one that they call here. If it's, you know, happens to work out roster-wise, that it fits. But you want to grow the game. She's going to help put eyeballs on those broadcasts.
It is.
I'm just, that's a fact. I'm not trying to skew it one way or the other here.
And like, not that the United States Olympic Committee needs like attention put on it, but it is good for them to sell jerseys with her name on it.
Correct.
I mean, it is.
And here's the thing too, you know,
the games are in France though. It's like there's part of me that's just like, this isn't about selling tickets. This isn't like the WNBA where you're trying to sell tickets and get eyeballs. Sure, would more people watch their games if she's on the team? All right, I'll buy that. Will they sell a lot more U.S. merchandise? Yeah,
right.
They will.
Yeah.
You know, that'll happen. You know, I'd have to put a number on this, though. Like, what's the value of it? But if you just go off of, you know, I just read what her stats are so far in her pro career. I mean, at this point, I can't make a case that she has to be there or that it's obvious she has to be there.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of the point, I think, of what some of the WNBA players have pushed back about. Like, stop anointing her LeBron James of our league. She's not.
Yeah.
Like, she may ascend to be the Steph Curry and she may ascend to be a massive star, but she's not one yet. So stop acting like she is. And in this case, I actually agree with them that this is what USA Basketball chose to do. I don't think that they're, like, avoiding her or doing this to send a message. I think that they just picked what they thought were the best players right now. And hopefully in 4 years, she's one of them
Right.
and is on the team.
Right. And I was going to say, like, that's going to be the fun part about this is you now actually get a look at the journey. That the next time that the Olympics roll around, it'll be 4 years away, and she should be good to go in that one, I'm assuming, as long as everything with her career continues to, take off. I do think I need to push back on, like, one thing with her overarching, like, the opinion on her. I wish people would stop getting mad at the people that only watch for her. Like, I think we need to have a discussion here about, yes, I know you want to grow the women's basketball game. I know you want to grow women's sports in general. But, like, it's okay if people just watch for her. Every sport goes through this where you
Right.
only want to watch MJ. You only want to watch LeBron. You only want to watch Bryce Harper. You only want to watch one specific star because you gravitate towards them. I just wish the discussion was a little less harsh towards some of those people. And I get it. Like, there are people that wave the flag a little too much for her, but whatever. That happens in every single sport. Look at kind of like kids now. You are going through this like with Archer, right? He wants all these jerseys of the stars, right? Because you gravitate towards the stars. And it's every sport. The NBA more than anything.
This is entertainment.
Yes. And so I think what really actually has happened, I wish everyone would just take a step back and go, I'm sorry, you want to know why the Chiefs have 15 primetime games out of 18 games or 17 games a year? The guy named Patrick Mahomes that everyone wants to watch.
That's right.
Well,
this happened a long time ago, but name one woman who's won a LPGA major. You can't.
No, I can't.
Right? Now, when Michelle Wie was playing, people paid attention to it.
Right.
And her career didn't go quite the way I think anyone expected that it would, but she brought a tremendous amount of eyeballs to women's golf at the time because she seemed to be this kind of superior. She was Tiger Woods of the women's golf game. It didn't work out that way, but people tuned in and watched. If we had an Olympic golf team, she should have been on.
That's
it.
right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Because, to your point, like, this is entertainment. You are trying to have engagement. And it's not like she stinks and you're gifting her this.
Right.
Or like, who won the French Open yesterday? I don't know. I don't know. I do know that when the Williams sisters were playing, I was pretty much tuned in.
Right. Exactly.
Often it was one of them winning.
Yes, right.
But I was certainly tuned in when they were doing it. I don't even know who was in the French Open final on the women's side at all. Right. Because they're not in it anymore. And probably, they were superior players. But it didn't happen overnight with them. It took a couple of years for them to become what they ultimately became, which was the dominant force of the sport. But they brought eyeballs to the sport and essentially closed the pay gap in tennis because they were the number one ticket for anyone to watch. So I agree. Like, everyone needs to just chill out here a little bit. But if you just go from a competitive standpoint, I see the reasoning why she's not on the team, and I don't have an issue with it.
And I also see the people that argue, hey, if you want to grow the game, you should, try to figure out how she's on there. I see really both sides to this, but I think winning.
I won't watch the Olympics, though, because she's not on it. That's just a dumb threat that's not true.
I agree. Right?
Why would you not support the United States team?
I will say this.
You're not going to watch Asia Wilson play for them? What's wrong with you?
I will say this.
What are you talking about?
Those weeks, though, are competitive for attention. People only want to watch certain things. Some people only want to watch the men's games. Like, I will say that's always a mishmash of like, oh crap, that happened today. Because I don't have the schedule in front of me of every single event that happens for the Olympics. So I would hope, one, this is actually put on more people's radar now that more people are going to watch. But if you weren't going to watch because of her, okay, you weren't watching anyways before, so they're not losing you.
No.
They're not gaining you, I guess.
And
really
also, like, this is the women's basketball game. Like, the men's game, we have a crazy team again.
Right.
So we're going to win. But, Spain's good now. France is good now. Some of those Eastern European countries have a couple stars. Like, Luke will play in the Olympics. Like, so they have, like, decent teams now. So we won't crush them the way we used to crush them. The women's side, we're going to kill people with our teams. Like, these other teams can't compete with us. Like, this is like it was in the original Dream Team when we finally put them out there and we're just beating people by 80 points. Like, they're going to kill people.
Right.
So her being there, does that make that much of a difference? I don't think there's many competitive games for the United States women's team to play. I just don't think the competition is there. It's not on that level. The European players are good enough on the men's side now that the games are interesting. At least
That's
a couple of them.
Yeah.
Not the early rounds.
That started with like Spain,
Right.
16 years ago, right? Yeah.
Right. We're gonna play Botswana or whoever in the first round, and we're gonna win 110-30.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're gonna play Spain at some point, or they're gonna play France at some point.
Right.
And the games are actually extremely competitive. There's NBA players littered on those teams.
Yeah.
So, but that's not the women's game yet. They don't have that level. This is the final week of organized activities around the NFL before everyone takes a break. And then we'll see everybody get back together towards the end of July. A couple teams will be out earlier than the others to get ready for the Hall of Fame game. And then Washington, some point I haven't seen a date of the start of training camp, but sometime in the last week of July is going to reorganize. And here we go. First training camp under Dan Quinn. But this week is the last week, and this is a mandatory week. For the Commanders, that hasn't really mattered. Everybody showed up anyway. For other teams, that's a different story, for various reasons. Everybody's been here, but we got 3 days left. It starts tomorrow, where they'll be on the field 3 more times and open to the public, or open to the media, for us to go see them practice for the next few days. I'm actually not going to go tomorrow. I'll tell you why in a bit.
Do they get an extra week because of Quinn being a new head coach, or am I imagining
they
that
get to start earlier?
Okay, got it.
When you have a new coach, you get to start earlier and avoid hard knocks. Those are the two.
Yes.
You get to start a little bit earlier when you get a new coach. Those are the rules that you get.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't talk a lot about this, but the NFLPA is pushing to try to change the offseason to the point where basically players would be off from the end of the season with, you could show up anytime you want to work out or whatever, but there'd be no organized activity until like now.
Yep. But then once you're in, you're
in.
in.
Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
So you start, and I think there's some merit to this actually. Like you show up in June, it's now all much more mandatory than it was.
Yeah.
And then you pick up a full-on training camp, but everybody's just kind of in from either like mid-June on.
Yep.
And, forget all the other stuff early. I guess if you wanted to do a rookie thing off of a draft,
sure.
Okay. You could do something like that.
Yeah.
Force them to do that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I've seen a lot of people write, if you go to the NFL and ask for this, they're going to tell you they want the 18th game. So negotiate at your own risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what you're doing. Because
Yes.
that's what they want. The CBA runs to like 2030 or 2031, so they can't get it officially unless you agree to do it.
That's right.
Which means if you go to them and say, we want this, the first thing they're going to say to you is, we want the 2 preseason games, 18th regular season game, Super Bowl President's Day weekend. I'm also not complaining about that, especially if they add a second bye week, which I think they need to. I think the NFL is admitting that the seasons are long.
Yes. Well,
and they know this. The physical attrition on their bodies, it's getting to the point where even I'm getting uncomfortable, where it's like, okay, like this, I see these guys every day. It is tough to get through an entire season. They're going to need more time. And I agree with them if they do this, that the ramp up period into the season should be different than this kind of scattershot thing that they do in the offseason currently. And maybe the players also feel like we just need an extended break because it is long.
I am not opposed to it, but I also am always very weary when the quote unquote NFLPA is pushing for something, because say whatever you want about DeMar Smith, but I mean, the guy does whatever the owners want him to do. He always has for the most part. Who's actually pushing for this? Because I don't know if players are actually doing that.
I don't know either. And
like that's where my red flag goes up though. Like I don't see Pat Mahomes going, "Hey guys, I want to start training camp in June." I'm just saying, I don't hear a bunch of guys banging the drum for that.
The last time when they moved to a 17th game, they asked for lighter restrictions on marijuana and a few less practices. And I'm like,
that's it?
That's all you want?
You guys know how much money these guys have behind you, right?
What are you talking about? Like, that's what you want? They're like, so the owners are like, because less practices, that's actually less money spent for them.
Correct. Right, exactly.
That they don't have to, make sure that the facility is fully staffed to do everything that needs to be done so a team can conduct a practice.
One thing I will say, if you start it now, okay, you're going to probably just treat this like a normal 9-to-5 job then. Like July 4th, everyone's going home for a week or whatever it is. Like you're going to have like breaks like that. I think the players are probably going to be okay with that, especially too if you say, well, those of you that are locked in your contracts, this will count as your off-season work, right? So then all of a sudden, like all your bonuses will start kicking in and all of that stuff, most likely, because then they're going to go, well, what do I need to show up for then if this is the off-season at this point, right? So I think that happens. There'll be a ton of players that are going to be perfectly fine to do it, but I think there's going to have to be some caveats here because I get it from the players' perspective too. when you hit the summer, man, like you turn it off for a while. Like, yes, you come to these
Definitely.
you come to these practices, but they're 3 and 4 day spurts. And then you're going back to your offseason and you're relaxing a little bit. So I wonder who's actually pushing for this and how they kind of fix it.
I'm wondering, too, why do they want to do this? I'm not totally sure why they want to do this, other than I think they feel like they need a more extended break. It is a long season, and I'll hear them out on all of that. And eventually the season is going to get longer, and it may make more sense for the players to have the ability to take an extended break to get their bodies back. Right. I understand that. I do.
I think the other argument here and why my red flag went up of who from the PA is actually pushing for this.
Yeah.
I think it's possible it is the owners and or Goodell looking at how sloppy some of the play has been. Like, they added that extra game. You and I talk about it all the time. The roster should probably be expanded by this point, right? Like, don't you think they should probably be adding 10 roster spots?
Yeah.
To hold on?
Yeah.
I mean, so
yes.
My thing is I think they're trying to improve play here. I think they're trying to let's get more organized. Let's coach more players too. Let's expand that game day roster to actually letting you use all 53 players.
Yeah, I've never understood that. The inactive thing makes no sense to me.
It should be 53 and it's 63 now. Like, you should expand this thing because
I don't know that the talent pool's deep enough, and I think too many teams would have too many talented players on it and shelve them. So I don't mind 53. But I think 53, obviously some guys are injured, so they can't play. But, like, if somebody's healthy and available, why would they be inactive?
Right. Well,
why doesn't even make it, like, let them play if the coach wants to put them in.
What I'm arguing for is a little bit more developmental, though. Like, I think teams should have, like, 10 roster spots you can't touch. Like that are, like, for developmental purposes. Like, yes, guys get signed off the practice squad. Perfectly fine with that. But the play in the league is getting sloppier because I don't think there's enough development happening.
Yeah, maybe.
It's what have you done for me lately? Guys
in
are
that
cut.
case, though, that in a development thing, like, the rule would be those guys can't get called up.
Yeah. No, for sure.
It would have to be you're slotted in this.
Or like when
you've agreed to be part of this.
Right.
But you can't play for that team because people would use it to shelve guys and call it development and then bring them up when they need to. And it would be a way around of expanding their roster that would eventually be unfair. 53 is a tough number, but it's a good number because it keeps the parity.
Right.
If you expanded it, there would be certain teams that have really, really deep benches and other teams that don't, and I think the parity would go away. Okay. And I don't think they want that to happen.
Fair enough.
In the meantime, I read this piece, with all this going on, that Connor Orr, who I like a lot, writes for SI, put this as a headline. The Jets' schedule and the MetLife turf should have them thinking load management. He said this: here are two mostly factual sets of information about the 2024 New York Jets delivered with a little editorializing as I can possibly muster. Number one, the Jets' 2024 season will feature four-time MVP Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, former offensive and defensive rookies of the year Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, 8-time Pro Bowler Tyron Smith. 7 of those Pro Bowls came in consecutive seasons. And Morgan Moses, who had an 8-year stretch in which he played every single game at the other tackle spot. Wilson will be aided at wide receiver by former number 7 pick Mike Williams, who had 2,000-yard seasons, blah, 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 blah. Number 2, the 2024 Jets will feature a 40-year-old quarterback, 2 33-year-old offensive tackles, one of whom has not played a complete season since 2015, and a 30-year-old number 2 receiver who played in just 3 games last season. That crew will play on a home field comprised of a sometimes snaggy artificial turf and against a schedule that features back-to-back road trips to start the season, 1 game against the defending NFC champions, 3 games in a span of 10 days, a net rest differential 6 games worse than the year before, the second highest number of back-to-back road trips in the NFL this season, the most primetime games of any team this season, the second most short road trips and short weeks in general of any team this season, and the 9th most grueling travel schedule measured by total miles traveled. The slate also includes an international game, and instead of a bye week after that trip, a primetime matchup against the division rival Bills. That is terrible, by the way. He goes, we could do this with almost anything, of course. I can call the Grand Canyon a geological marvel that has been known, whatever. And he goes, there are people who enjoy the glass being half full, people who enjoy being half empty, and the people who like to smash the glass. He goes, but the deeper we get into the preseason as it ramps up, the more I cannot stop thinking about how the number 2 description of the upcoming season. I recognize that there are some qualifying statements that need to be made. The Jets drafted a successor to one of those tackles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he gets to this point where he says, all this said, the stage is set for a season that I don't think we're truly properly placing into perspective, and one that I don't think we adequately understand. If this team is successful, it won't be because it has a good quarterback. It won't just be because of the first set of facts that we articulated above. It would be because those facts were supplemented by a masterclass in load management. A top-down, synchronized approach from the head coach to the strength and conditioning staff, to the trainers, the physical therapists, the performance specialists, and dietitians, to shepherd a roster in which 15 of its potential contributors are 29 or older, through a schedule created by television executives that more closely resembles a saw house than a fair and balanced slate of football games. He's not wrong. I've been talking about this for a couple years just in general. Mm-hmm. There are certain positions you can't do this with, but there are certain positions that you can.
Yep.
I think the Commanders, and this might be by, less design and more out of we don't have a number 1 left tackle, have to think about playing multiple left tackles this year.
Sure.
I think they have to think about playing
Sam
potentially. They have to think about potentially playing multiple left guards.
Yeah, right.
This year. Their backup center, why couldn't he play a game? Mm-hmm. Ricky Stromberg was a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
Could he play a game? Could you get away with doing that for the sake of the team through the course of a year? Rotational pieces. We've seen this more and more and more in recent years on the defensive line. You've seen a lot of this.
Yeah.
The primary players, they play 60% of the snaps, maybe 70. The rotation is thick now. Even guys with Allen and Payne go off the field for series at a time. They take their best players off. Everybody's doing this now. I agree with this, and I think teams are slowly going in this direction. I don't think you can do it at quarterback.
Of course, yeah.
I don't think you can. I think you're risking, because a loss is so devastating in this league that I think you're risking doing it. But when you read what the Jets have to go through, and they're one of many. The Chiefs' schedule's crazy because they're the Chiefs and everybody wants them on national TV. So they're going to play on Saturday and Wednesday. In December, they're going to do that to them. In December, they're going to do this to them. They're going to have a lot of short turnarounds because they're going to play on Monday night or Sunday night. They're going to be traveling. They're going to be the premier team. This is going to happen periodically to anybody. The Commanders don't have that problem this year. Every game they play at home is at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. But the premier teams, they get run through a gauntlet that's going to be very difficult to navigate. And I agree that really their season isn't just Aaron Rodgers staying healthy. It's can they survive this to where their team actually shows up to the next game feeling as if that competitively they can put their best foot forward. And as the season progresses, it's going to be tough to make that case for them. So they're at a disadvantage when hopefully Jaden Daniels is good and we're the Cat's Meow team and we're getting the crazy schedules. Will we be able to handle it? And I agree with the premise here that load management in the NFL, if it can be accomplished, albeit with roster sizes that are very strict, if you can pull it off, I think the teams that figure out how to navigate resting guys periodically throughout the season in spots where they don't feel like they're going to lose that much of an advantage by sitting a guy are the ones that are going to be in December and January looking and feeling better than most, because this is getting more and more and more about attrition to me.
Well, I think to bring it back to the beginning of the segment, if I'm the PA, I'm inserting some kind of rule here, because I think there are players on the Jets, and then there are players on the Chiefs that are going, just because I play with this guy, I have to put my body through this something.
Correct.
Like we're getting punished for being good with these crazy schedules. We're getting punished because we have these generational talents on our team. And for some of these guys, it might affect their entire career. If someone has a season-ending injury and can't bounce back, like all of a sudden, that's on the league for that to happen. On one of those short turnaround, the Saturday to Wednesday Christmas game, somebody tears his ACL or tears his knee up or something, especially if it's on that MetLife turf, right?
Yeah.
Which is its own. I thought this is what the article was actually going to get into. MetLife is a minefield when it comes to injuries these days. And
I'm shocked they haven't come around to just putting grass in there
Me too.
and just shut everybody up for once.
I agree. But I guess what I'm getting at here, too, is if I'm the
You're
PA,
the Giants and Jets. It's not like you're not making money.
Correct. And here's the thing, too. If I'm the PA, I'm going to them and going, I'm sorry, what's the difference to you guys if 20 million and 24 million people watch some of these games? Everybody's still watching them for the most part. Like, Do you really need to have the Chiefs on 8 or 9 times on primetime? Do you need to have the Jets in all of those games? People are going to watch kind of regardless. Like,
Yeah.
I think the PA actually does need to step in here and go, we need some kind of limit here. Like,
Well, if you're, this is what I'd ask for. It's going to go to 18 games.
Yep.
And they want to change the offseason. Okay, here's what you need to ask for. There are rules by which how much rest you need to have
Correct.
between games.
yes, exactly.
Period.
Or like we get
Each-
one 5-day window for the Thursday night game.
That's
or,
it.
Or max 2 all year or something like that.
Correct.
Where that's where it kicks
Or
in.
if you're going to put us in some midweek game, there is a limitation to what that looks like on both sides of that.
Yep. Right.
Right?
Right.
If they streamlined the bye weeks and did them by division, they could turn those Thursday games into divisional nights.
That's what I've been screaming for years to do.
And, and if all of them had a bye the week before, then it's not that big of a deal.
That's right.
And then they had actually extra rest to play these games.
That's
You
right.
probably get more competitive outcomes.
Yep.
When you add things like a Wednesday game, which they're doing this year, there's no way around. Like, I thought they'd give people a bye, but it's so late in the season they can't.
They can't.
So now they're doing Saturday to Wednesday in December. And it's premier teams because they want the premier teams in
Right.
these windows because they're giving it to Netflix or whoever who wants to get subscriptions out of the whole thing. I understand the money. I understand, but in the end, what can hurt the league is if competitively the teams don't look right.
Yep.
And I agree that they're going to have to take this into their own hands. It's up to the PA to negotiate a better situation in terms of rest, right?
Right.
And I think the coaches would appreciate that too because they don't want to put a team out there that's tired or
course
hurt because then they lose. And if they lose, their contracts are
right.
you have to win.
They're
it doesn't.
fired too, yeah.
They don't. In the end, the owners don't care what the schedule was and don't think about it. They just go, well, the other team had to do it too, and you lost, so they look at them. I think they need to think about this, and I also agree with this load management stuff. And I've been talking about this for the last few years. Like, you don't need one running back; you need 3.
Right. Right.
You should have
Yep.
2 to 3 of them.
Right.
And offensive line. You know what? If you have Pro Bowlers like Lane Johnson or whoever, I get you're not going to take him out. Of course, you're not going to take him out. But if you're a team like most teams, like the Commanders have what looks to be a rotation at a position, is there really anything wrong with thinking about they're all playing this year?
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
We may be better served that way. Maybe, maybe not. But in the end, we could have Cornelius Lucas healthy at the end of the year. And wouldn't that be something if we had a left tackle that, no one thinks is a Pro Bowler, but at least he hasn't been run through the mill.
Right.
He wasn't going to be your starter or at least 17-game starter anyway. The defensive line's been doing this. I think we're thinking about it at linebacker now. The more and more and more that I think you can do, there's certain spots. You can't take A.J. Brown out for a week.
Of course. Yeah.
You can't take your number one corner out for a week. You just can't. You can't. It's too much of a risk. You can't take your quarterback out if he can play. It's too much of a risk. But at all of these other positions, I don't see, except for the fantasy people will freak out. But
yes.
I don't see why. I think New England started doing this years ago. They just ran through running backs.
Yep.
There's
Right.
people just get mad at the fantasy, like you can't pick one of the running backs because you don't know who's going to play that week. They started doing this years ago where they're like, you know what? We don't need to feature anybody.
That's right.
And if Ramondre Stevenson gets 10 carries this week, in 3 weeks, his body may feel better than the other team. And I think it's smart. So I agree with this too, especially with the Jet schedule, which is ridiculous and is probably the biggest issue I see for them outside of, Rodgers has to be healthy. But the biggest issue I see for them, because their defense looks great, and then he's going to come back, and their offense outside of their line looks good enough. They should be good. That schedule could kill them.
Right.
So they better think about it. How are they going to rotate people so that they are semi-fresh and don't lose games on all this short rest because they're just beat up?
I also wonder as well, will some teams be a little bit more liberal with being up by 10 to 13 points late in games? That's by no means a blowout.
No, and in the
But
NFL, things can change fast,
two
too.
plays. That's two
and
plays.
the worst press conference on earth is blowing a lead like that and explaining it.
Correct. But I look at the Jets and go, let's say their defense has been playing really well all year. What if Saleh goes, Tyrod Taylor, you're heading in there for the fourth quarter because we can't risk the wear and tear on Rodgers.
Right.
And then he's got to wear it, whatever happens in that fourth quarter or 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, or whatever you want to call it. I think those are the decisions that I think some teams should kind of start to make. I get it. The percentages are the percentages, and we've seen, and really in the last 10 years, the craziest end results in the NFL games, period, right? But I think some of these teams have to start thinking about that a little bit
Yeah.
by, yes, you put Tyrod in, but you're going to make sure you run the ball and you try to kill the clock a little bit, but it mitigates the risk for an important player like Rodgers, and hopefully he's fresher down the stretch.
Yeah. If I'm the players, do I want the offseason schedule to change? Yes. Is that more important than getting adequate rest between games? Think about that, guys.
That's right.
If they're going to move to 18, then you need to get some stipulations on what can and cannot be done in the schedule that shortens your weeks.
Yeah.
And if you're a prime team, you can't get punished like this.
Yeah, I think if you're like a guy, literally like if you're Patrick Mahomes, you need to actually be the one banging the drum
Yes.
here of just because I'm good, but the rest of my team shouldn't have to kind of suffer through
Well,
this primetime schedule.
And also, don't you want me playing in this league for a long
That's
time?
right,
Because what
exactly.
you're doing is
Yep.
putting us all at risk because we shouldn't be out there on such a short period of rest, and you know this.
That's right, exactly.
And all the fans want is the best football they can get.
Right.
So this should be a win-win for everybody. You want as healthy as they can be, the stars to be healthy, and not to feel like December is such a grind that they're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Which is what it is.
The other side of all this, by the way, that I think is actually the more ridiculous is look at some of those 4:00 slates, throughout the season where there's literally 2 to 3 games.
Yeah.
Guys, you can spread this out a little bit
They've
too.
spread it out
and
so
people
much.
And people
Yeah.
will watch the Chiefs at that 4
right.
o'clock window, and then everyone else going to watch their local windows. You're not going to get everyone watching every game.
I
now.
still can't believe they kick everything off at 1 and everything.
It's so insane.
Why
to
don't
me.
you stagger it? I've
Yeah.
never really understood
Oh,
that. Why
that's-
don't you stagger it?
Yeah, I've never understood that. I get it. You have to get the 4:00 games off in time for Sunday night. Completely fine with that. But
Fine.
yeah, why 1:00 local isn't a thing, especially in Texas too? Like the Cowboys and the Texans should all be going off 1:00 local. I've not understood that one bit. The witching hour isn't that viral. Like it doesn't need to be this thing to move the schedule or keep the schedule that way. I'm with you. 1:00 local, I think, would just be so much better. Baseball does it. Every other sport does it.
Or I mean, why couldn't you start a game at 12?
Yeah, I mean,
12:30,
I'm with you on
1
that.
o'clock.
I mean, I guess mainly because they really do. I mean, those are ratings getters anyways. I mean, it's an extra hour of TV that they're already taking over.
I guess.
So I guess
You
what
just-
they would take an extra hour. I mean, 11 becomes the primetime stuff.
So you just move the pregame show up an hour.
I mean,
I mean, what?
I don't think it's insane.
No,
by any
I mean,
means.
what CBS and Fox don't want to do is those Sunday political shows rate. So
Yeah.
they don't want to lose those.
Sure.
But like once 11 o'clock hits, it's typically nothing.
Goodell's coming after Christmas, bruh. Like,
Oh, yeah.
What's safe anymore?
Nothing.
Like, so
It's over.
Like Goodell could go to them and go, we're starting games at noon. What are those networks going to do? Nothing.
They kick off these international games at 9:30 in the morning. People watch them.
Yeah. I mean, maybe
It's not like they don't.
I'm actually kind of with you. Maybe that should be the move. You have one noon game a week. Or,
Noon.
Yeah,
One.
and that kicks
One.
that kicks the day off.
One goes at noon.
Yeah.
One's at 12:30.
Yeah.
You could start 1 or 2 at 1, 1:15.
Sure.
Then you get to 4, same thing. 4 o'clock, 4:10, 4:25. Like,
Yeah.
why aren't you staggering these so you get all the finishes to be different?
Sure. No, I mean,
Yeah.
that just makes too much sense.